Okay, so something in the news caught my attention the other day from Twitter of all, or X as they call it nowadays, of all things.
Just
uh,
call it script.
right? But I wanted to catch Doctor of Insanity's opinion on it because I definitely have some opinions on it. I got this story from Ma, and no, it has nothing to do with on screen right now. I just wanted to get his live reaction to this. Okay, so the
And he's
story.
doing everything he can to prevent you from actually knowing what it is.
Oh no, it'll be in the title. Anyway, so this is the news story that I would like to discuss for a bit. So, a Taiwanese man helped stop a knife attack because that's what his anime hero Himmel from Frieren Beyond Journey's End would do. He also said he hopes his actions and pride as an otaku will help improve public perception of those who identify as such. What?
Before we jump into this,
What a Chad!
Yes, before we jump into this, I will say it's like I have not seen up to the point in the anime of the knife scene, but I believe I have seen a clip of said knife moment he's referring to.
I have not actually watched Frieren, but this is definitely a strong advertisement for it now. I definitely want to watch it now. But the reason I had it on an article about All Star Superman is because I wanted to make a point about the role of fiction in society. Not like a political statement. It really isn't. This is a very apolitical thing I'm about to state, which is that it matters what stories you tell. You can have all kinds of you can have grimdark stories from like Warhammer 40k. That's fine. That has a place in society. There's a great amount of catharsis you can get from the grimdark of something like Berserk, for example. But you also need classic stories of heroism, and this is precisely why. I mean, it may seem silly to a lot of modern, let's be fair, mostly boomer types.
Ango kids, get off my lawn!
Right? But anyway, not to turn this into a generational thing either. But
Too late.
anyway, but you don't think that this kind of stuff wasn't in people's minds when in the olden days when you had like moments where heroic courage was needed? You not think that people in the Anglo-Saxon sphere, when it came time to man up, that no one was thinking of Wiglaf, in Wiglaf fighting alongside his king Beowulf in the final fight with the dragon, thinking that
Not only that, but it's like look at all these type of cultures and the type of virtues that they want us to actually follow. It was like they're big heroic type of characters. Here's like a perfect example would be Hercules. Yeah, a lot of the things he did back then nowadays wouldn't actually fly in modern day type of culture, but that's besides the point. But look at the virtues that he basically stood with his strength. With his strength, the drive that he was going towards,
he was a guile hero, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Most Hercules' strength wouldn't have meant much if he didn't actually use his wit.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
But that's one thing. Like, there's a reason why we have characters like these throughout all of history, and basically, again, I haven't actually seen the anime, but I do believe I know exactly what type of knife scene he's referring to. But there are a reason why series like these, with moments like that, are very popular.
Okay. Anyway, so you're missing you're definitely moving away from the point I was going to drive towards, but that's fine because I got you on here for a particular reason. So this actually article led to nothing. Anyway, so there was a reason why I wanted to link this, which is about a man stopping a homicide, to these two articles, which, or at least in this one, is about how All-Star Superman back in the day stopped what I think I can find like 2, maybe 3 different stories of people who were like saved from committing suicide from, again, the power of fiction. And the reason I'm aiming towards this is because I have a little bit of a rat, to use the VTuber terminology, that I want to explore here, which is that I think that we sometimes need to simulate things that we forget are true into something that we can more easily cognize in order to recall those things. So, for example, if you believe in any kind of like metaphysical reality, then you believe that there are things that are beyond just this mere collection of atoms. You probably believe that there are some set of, for example, moral like obligations and moral duties, but you also believe in some kind of intrinsic dignity that people have, for example. Uh, and the reason I bring this up is because I think that for the higher truths, the truths about goodness and beauty, I think in general, a lot of us have kind of forgotten those. And if we've forgotten those, or if we haven't forgotten them, it is sometimes really hard to remember them. And it gets harder to remember them sometimes. Uh, but that's why we have these stories. You think, for example, the Arthurian cycle, with the whole story of the knights being the heroic men who not only saved the country from external forces, but also, guard them from the internal strife as well. I mean, think about the whole story of like Lancelot betraying Arthur, and through the entire story, yeah, it's a tragic thing that Lancelot betrays Arthur, but then you have like Sir Bedivere, if I remember how to say that correctly.
No one can remember.
Absolute Chad throughout the entire story. He is a unbreakable moral paragon, and this is kind of important because, again, as I said, you don't think children in the Middle Ages didn't think of, Sir Bedivere or like Lancelot before his betrayal, obviously, when they were needed to be heroic when the time called. No, I think that's exactly what happened. I think that fairy tales and mythology and nowadays fiction are things that we use to reflect those higher truths that we all implicitly know in a way that we can, in a sense, remember. It's almost as if we've forgotten them. That, at times just getting lost in the motions, you forget the things that are really important. And we'll use All-Star Superman, for example. In All-Star Superman, there is a structure of the cosmology that is actually really interesting. You have the higher cosmology that is more real than the than the universe that the story is mainly taking place in, with the author of the comic, and then you have the comic book world. And this also happens in Flex Mentallo as well, right?
Yep.
Where you have this tripartite structure of transcendent reality, baser physical reality, and then you have the fictional plane. And what we find is that in those three stories, at least, the higher reality is actually reflected back to us in a way we can understand through the stories that we read. And this actually brings me back to like C.S. Lewis, for example, and how C.S. Lewis, his whole point of the Narnia series was not in the beginning, because in the beginning it was just a fun story with the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which wasn't meant to be an allegory, and then the later story becomes an allegory. But still the point stands that even though the original story was not an allegory and all the like little Christological elements are for the most part accidental, it's still that higher reality coming through into the fictional space so that it can be reflected back into us in a way that we can, if you will, receive it.
Truly a narrative progression.
And I do think that those higher truths, that higher reality, and if you're religious, it's very obviously God and the metaphysical plane, the plane of virtues and powers and principalities, reflecting themselves back to us through our creative process. And I think that part of this is, again, this may not be directly related to this, but I hope this kind of this rambling idea fleshes itself out in a moment. But I do think that those ideas are encoded into us in our, to use Jung's terms, collective unconscious. I think we all have an idea of these truths deep in our subconscious that we all share with each other. We just, again, become numb to these things. We become concerned with other things, and we forget them. And I think that fiction actually does have the power, just like old fairy tales and old mythology, to actually remind us of those things that are true and beautiful. And in this case, and I'm going to just read a tweet that, what do they call them on X now?
I think they're still calling them tweets.
Okay.
I don't know what the actual people who run the site call them. They're probably something like stupid like dashes. But I said the people who post on these sites on Twitter still call them tweets.
Yeah. So I tweeted and I'm not going to show it on the screen only because I'm not entirely familiar with how OBS works. But anyway, I'll just read it. Unfathomably based otaku channels the heroic spirit he admires, becoming a reflection of that higher reality dimly encoded in our collective unconscious and dimly reflected back to us in our stories. Yeah, that's basically what he did. He just admits it. This is what his hero would do. He is channeling the heroic spirit that is Himmel.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not like being possessed by a ghost or anything. It's very obviously like an archetypal like energy or operation. That's what energy means. It means it's not like a spirit. It means operation. He's channeling this heroic operation that all of us have access to. We just forget that we have access to this same power.
Yes. Like he has magic that is helping boost his senses or spirits and such.
I think you're focusing too much on the unreal part. Okay.
I'm saying, let me finish. It's like, yeah, he has that type of thing. Yes, Superman has these powers, but a lot of the things that these people are doing are stuff that the main driving force for why they do these things are basically inside of all of us. The reason why this guy right here, I believe it's the blue hair one day.
Yes, Himmel is the guy, the actual man.
Yeah. Clearly, I haven't gone that far into the series. But it's like, yeah, the thing that drove Himmel to actually stop the villain from using the knife on his pal is the exact same reason why this Taiwanese man stopped the knife attack.
I think you're focusing too much on the specific here. I'm just trying to make a generalist statement. I can't really comment on this because I have, again, never seen the show, but I'm definitely going to watch it after this because like this is absolutely based, and it is absolutely a stellar reason for me to watch this show, to be perfectly honest. It's like, I am definitely going to watch the anime which inspired a man to stop a knife attack. I am watching this. You have caught my fucking attention. Right? But, yeah, I mean, and again, it's, like, because obviously, like, the characters aren't real. But in a sense, what they're showing is actually, in a sense, more real than us. In the state that we live in. Because what it's showing us is that there is a higher reality that we participate in, although dimly, that reaches down to us and that we can reach up towards. You know, it's that whole C.S. Lewis concept of we are spiritual amphibians. We live both in the material world and the spiritual world at the same time. Like, our life is not just a life of dull matter. It is a life of living matter. Because what makes that matter alive is the spirit that is also the spirit of virtue and the spirit of beauty and the spirit of goodness. And in fact, it is our detachment from that spirit of goodness, virtue, and beauty that makes our life dull, and you know it's what immiserates people, to be perfectly honest. Is that disconnect from that, again, source of beauty, which we find expressed in. And again, it's like all beauty has a source. It's the form or the essence of beauty, right? So then, whenever you see beauty in fiction, it is participating, even though it is not real, still participating in the form of beauty. When you see heroes in these stories, yeah, they may not be real, but they are still participating in the heroic form, like real people are. That's why I think, and I think that is particularly the mechanism by which they can inspire us, is because, yeah, they may not be ontologically on the same level as us, but they're still participating in the same energy. Operation, in the same form, i.e. their essence, as those things. Like, so, you know, that would be my take there, is I'm definitely watching this anime.
Same.
I don't know if this is going to be watchable. I just wanted to just, like, ramble on about the story, because, like, this is fucking cool. Like, again, it's like, it was cool when I read those accounts of, like, for example, the person who decided to live after he saw All-Star Superman, because let's be fair, All-Star Superman in that story is honestly a god substitute. Like, he's not trying to substitute God. It's not like worship Superman, but it's like, no, he is a dim reflection of the divine becoming man. And in that story, when he's got all these other things to worry about, what does the God who became man do? He breaks away from what he's doing because that girl on the ledge is just as important as all his other miracles. This is, and I think people don't really understand this. This is one of the 12 tasks that Superman has to perform before he dies in this story. That's one of the ways I've interpreted this particular scene in the story. There's a reason this scene gets the attention it does in the story. This is one of the works. One of the 12 labors of Superman. The modern Hercules.
Even if it wasn't, just a moment on its own is a very beautiful scene.
Again, it's like...
But the fact that it actually fits so well into the rest of the story is what brings it from just a standard good scene to an amazing one.
Yeah, and this is an almost perfect representation of compassion. It's like you have, again, the God-Man, and again, it's like, I have to point this out. Kal-El is very close to the Hebrew Kol-El, which just means the voice of God. And hell, Kal-El in Kryptonian means child of a star. So it's like, so the star, this child of a star comes down. The voice of God comes down. And what does he do? He shows an act embodying compassion while he remains strong so that she can be weak. Mm-hmm. So that she can, have her moment of catharsis and step away from the ledge. He has to be that pillar of strength to show her that, again, you're much stronger than you think you are. Trust me.
Yep.
Who the fuck is going to challenge Superman? Again, the closest thing to God on Earth in this thing. So it's like, this is one of the perfect examples of, again, the higher reality where life does have meaning, value, and purpose. Where things like heroism and things like heroism, goodness, and beauty actually mean something, are reflected back to us, even if we didn't mean this to be the thing. It is just functionally, from a Jungian perspective, I guess, what has objectively happened in this story and why it is so powerful. And I think this is kind of what happened here. Is it may not have been to the same degree of metaphysical significance as this, because I think that this is borderline a perfect scene.
Yeah.
Not just because it's perfectly encapsulates the character, but it also almost perfectly encapsulates, again, the relationship between the higher reality and the lower reality. But again,
through the fictional reality.
Yeah, reflected back to us from the fictional reality. And I think we are seeing this here. We saw an example of heroism which inspires. That compels you to be like it. How many people read Batman comics, for example, and then they're like, what, I want to get into shape. I want to be like Batman.
Or or watch the Dragon Ball anime.
Yeah, they want to get into shape. Or how many people, for example, experience any kind of media, and then they see the goodness of a particular thing, and it inspires them to try to not either emulate that thing in its goodness, or to pursue that thing in its goodness.
Yeah.
And I think that is a key thing. I do think we need more stories like this. I do think that I know the I haven't read many of the tweets under Maw's, and I'll put the channel and the actual profile I got this from in the tweets. In the description. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about this. This is fucking cool. How do I even end this conversation? This is absolutely cool. It is, again, the higher reality of virtue, just represented in the lower reality of fiction, and even in the fictionalized version, it has the power to inspire real life transformation.
Here's a way of how that actually ended. It's we need more stories that shows the good and virtue. Moments like these, All-Star Superman, or Hamill here defending his friend from a villain using a knife. We need more moments like these. Granted, I understand why there are so many stories about a flawed hero, but at the same time, if you're going to have just the flawness of the character without any of the redeeming qualities, it kind of destroys the narrative when it comes to the virtues like these. Like, and it may seem like a bit of a tangent, but it's like there's a reason why characters like Red Sun Superman, the Superman that grew up in the Soviet Union,
the only good evil Superman.
Yeah, there's a reason why that Superman is so beloved, while versions like Injustice Superman, while it did have its moment in the sun, basically fizzled out and now more or less is not considered good by most people. It's like people are kind of annoyed by how much Injustice Superman has damaged the mythos.
I mean, it is kind of a tangent. I mean, I agree, but it is kind of a tangent not related to the point of like this cool.
I know, but I'm bringing up just to say it's like we need more moments that inspire scenes like this.
Yeah.
Not just tearing down the heroes just for the sake of tearing them down.
I want to see more examples of fictional characters inspiring people to be heroes. Like IRL, like again, stopping a knife attack, or anything like this. This is again wild and absolutely based. This is unfathomably based. Okay, well, this has probably rambled on for way too long, so I guess I'll stop it here.